Please stand for the reading of God's word from Hebrews 11, 8 through 22. By faith, Abraham obeyed when he was called to go out to a place that he was to receive as an inheritance. And he went out, not knowing where he was going. By faith, he went to live in the land of promise, as in a foreign land, living in tents with Isaac and Jacob, heirs with him of the same promise. For he was looking forward to the city that has foundations, whose designer and builder is God. By faith, Sarah herself received power to conceive, even when she was past the age, since she considered him faithful who had promised. Therefore, from one man, and him as good as dead, were born descendants as many as the stars of heaven, and as many as the innumerable grains of sand by the seashore. These all died in faith, not having received the things promised, but having seen them and greeted them from afar, and having acknowledged that they were strangers and exiles on the earth. For people who speak thus make it clear that they are seeking a homeland. If they had been thinking of that land from which they had gone out, they would have had opportunity to return. But as it is, they desire a better country, that is, a heavenly one. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared for them a city. By faith, Abraham, when he was tested, offered up Isaac, and he who had received the promises was in the act of offering up his only son, of whom it was said, "Through Isaac shall your offspring be named." He considered that God was able even to raise him from the dead, from which, figuratively speaking, he did receive him back. By faith, Isaac invoked future blessings on Jacob and Esau. By faith, Jacob, when dying, blessed each of the sons of Joseph, bowing in worship over the head of his staff. By faith, Joseph, at the end of his life, made mention of the exodus of the Israelites and gave directions concerning his bones. This is the word of the Lord.
Thank you, Olivia. That felt longer than my sermon. We'll be here for a couple hours walking through that. No, we won't. I did want to give a really fast update. I realize I haven't mentioned this up here, but we a couple weeks ago actually went under contract to purchase the Logsons building in Maxwell, and we are supposed to close in 11 days. And so March 19th is our closing date. So I just would love for us just to keep praying about it as the Lord keeps providing the people and the money and all those things. So we'll keep meeting here. That'll just be, Lord willing, our center for all the days outside of Sunday, the counseling center, and hopefully a place for the community to come together too. So I'm so glad to be here this morning. I was in Oklahoma City for like a full week. I was down there last Sunday. I was able to spend time with Madison Woodard, with Tanner and Kim Ball, Cody and Jonathan. I hung out with with Christy Hepp for some time, and man, it was really rich to connect with them. And if you don't know them, they moved with us 7 years ago almost now to help start the church. Very active in the church for quite some time. Really such a huge role to get us to where we are today. And they're all on mission, loving Jesus, walking with him in the same church, Frontline Edmond in it's kind of like the Ankeny of Oklahoma City. And that was the church that I helped to start as a pastor about 10 plus years ago. People asked me when it was, and I was like, it's all a blur. I'm not sure, but it was sometime in the past. And it was a joy to really preach there. I was blessed to be there. They overwhelmingly made it clear that they love us. It's about 800 people or so in this church now, and they just it's like they know us because they pray for us so much and they talk about us so often, and they support us on our mission here. So they're like, please let Sacred Mission know we love what's happening and we are supporting you. And I was like, we want to support you. And I was so encouraged On Friday, I listened to George's sermon that he preached here last Sunday, and I texted him. I was like, dude, blessed me. Blessed my socks off, and I was so thankful. If you missed last Sunday, I would encourage you to listen on our podcast. We had a guy from the Liverpool, England area, George, who really beautifully spoke about faith. And then I heard that Josh, who came to, spoke at the well. I got a video of like a spontaneous spoken word that he did, and Grace was telling me all about the blessing that it was to have Josh there too. And so it's just really thankful. I was able down in Oklahoma City to they drove down with Cody on Monday, and I was able to hang out with George and Josh during the week. And Josh even did a spontaneous spoken word thing when we were hanging out. And I was like, wow, you did 2 in a row. Like, this is such a blessing. And I'm thankful that Jesus is connecting people of Hope Church, Kensington, England, with us here. Like, in some ways, it's like, man, it'd be nice if they were like in Baxter and we could be closer or something. Like, it's like, why are they so far away? But also, like, he seems to be knitting us together. So it's like, whatever you're doing here, it's amazing. Like, George even reached out to me yesterday. It's like, Tim, I just feel such a connection to your church, to each of you. I don't know what that means, but I want us to even get closer in the future. And so I was encouraged by that Jesus is connecting us together. And one of the things that I was thankful for coming back is I actually love that I get to live in rural Iowa. Like, getting home and like just realizing he is called, because I've been with people who were called to Mumbai, India, who are called to Romania, and to be like, you might be like, no, I wasn't called here. I've just always lived here. It's like, no, he's called us here. Like, it's not accidental where we live. It's not accidental the way that our lives are. And he's called us to be a people here in Iowa. And I actually loved late Thursday night going to sleep on my pillow in Iowa and waking up in Iowa and wanting to keep waking up to what the Lord has for us here together. I felt like we were really discipled well by George last Sunday on faith. Like, I was sitting at Jesus's feet as George was leading through, but I loved how George even talked about how faith is a very, very important aspect of our lives, and faith itself is not the main thing. Like, I loved how George even mentioned faith itself can't be the thing, because we can put our faith in the wrong people. We can put our faith in the wrong areas. Like, people really believed and put their faith in Bernie Madoff to manage their money. And by all analysis, he was an incredible person to put your faith in, to give him all the money you have so that he would give you a great return. So many people, smart people, put their faith in Bernie Madoff, and now he is infamous for how well he tricked everybody and just spent all their money. And now he's paying for that. George talked about how it's not even the sincerity of our faith. It's not like someone who's like, no, you don't get it. I really believe Bernie Madoff is a good manager of money. It's like, hey, your intensity of how much you believe that that's not the marker. What is so important about our faith is who our faith is in, the object of our faith. And I love how George even led us into how trustworthy Jesus is, and really is the only trustworthy one that we can just fully say, my faith is in you. Not just for my finances, but for my life, for my future, for the future of my kids, my grandkids, people I will never meet who will know me as part of their lineage. Like, you are the one that will be there when I'm not. You're the one that will be powerful when I have no influence anymore. And recognizing that the most powerful aspect of our lives is not just that we have really passionate faith, but that our faith is in Jesus. And even knowing sometimes our faith is not as strong as we want it to be. And other times we feel like we're on the mountaintop. And thankfully, we can rest securely through all of those ebbs and flows because of the object of our faith, who our faith is in, that he is ready. And I love that George even talked about how our faith is not like we're blindfolded, we're like led to like a cliff, and then we're told like, hey, just do a trust fall, he'll catch you. And you're like, well, gosh, I don't want to. I'm blindfolded. I don't know where I'm at and stuff. But that faith is actually a trust fall where we can look and see. And we can actually like see that oh, he's watching. Oh, he's there. He's ready. He's capable. He will catch my life. Has he caught your life? Yes. Has he caught your life? Yeah. I think he could catch my life too. My eyes are on him. His eyes are on me. I can fall into his arms with the full weight of my life. That is faith. So this morning, we're going to move in more into Hebrews chapter 11, but a first verse before we get to 8 through 22 that Olivia read is to see once again the crucial nature of verse 6. Verse 6 of Hebrews chapter 11 says, without faith, it is impossible to please him. For whoever would draw near to him must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who seek him. So if we don't, in faith, trust Jesus with our lives, it's impossible to please God. That's just a clear. It might be like, gosh, I kind of would like to have 20 options here. I mean, 20 options are kind of good if they're all good options. 20 options are terrible if 19 of them take you far away from the most healthy thing of your life. And what I love is he says, hey, look, let's make this crystal clear. Without faith in Jesus, it's impossible to please God. For whoever would draw near to God must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who seek him. So, I mean, it's a very natural thing to say, like, hey, I believe my faith's in God, but I don't believe he exists. You'd be like, well, let's just, for the sake of clarity, realize that him existing is a big part of faith. And when you read this, you're like, the bar's kind of low on our end, right? It's like, what do I got to do? And it's like, gosh, get out your checkbook. You know, you got to go to all these classes. It'll probably be a year or two before you're even close to thinking that you even have his attention. It's like, the bar is so low because of what he has done on our behalf, that he just says like, hey, look, you need to have faith, which means we have to not rely on ourselves to catch ourselves. We rely on him, and we believe he exists and that he rewards those who seek him. I think being like a Iowan who seeks to be kind of humble, I think a lot of us are like, well, give those rewards to somebody else. I'm not in it for that. Not in it for the reward. You know, I'm just, there's like a false humility, I think, that we can have. Like Silas is learning this with he's learning the Urdu language, and he's learning another culture to be able to spend the summer in another culture. And he's like, Dad, I'm learning that when someone offers to pay for your food, everybody always says no. Like, you just say no. Or if you offer to pay for someone else's food, like, they will say no. Culturally, they just will. And they're like, then if they say, I will pay for your meal a second time, you also should say no. And if they really mean it, they will ask a third time. And then you should accept it, because it would be rude to not accept it when they actually, but if they stop at 2, they mean like they actually really want you to pay for your meal. But the third time is real. And so he was telling me about a situation where him and this other guy were doing that with each other. And I think here we're like, oh, no, I don't want any rewards for following you. But realize who this is being written to. It's being written to us. It's being written to us. And the original recipients of this book had given their lives to Jesus, had put their faith in Jesus. Then life, I think they probably thought, as most of us probably think, when I give my life to Jesus, it'll be awesome. Great. He's the Prince of Peace. I'll never have anything that threatens my peace again. He's the King of the world. He'll surely just give me everything I want, and life will be perfect. And I've had feelings like that. I'm sure the people here had feelings like this. Like, once I meet Jesus, I am like up and to the right on my curve of my standard of living, and it'll never stop. I won't have my car won't break down anymore. I won't ever lose my job. People will give me like a mansion, or like, I'm sure following Jesus will just give me all those things, right? Well, these people, when they met Jesus, their life got way harder. They actually lost their homes. They actually lost their jobs. And they were faced with this reality of, do I keep following him, or do I surrender and just go back to the way I used to live? And so I think it's actually very important that when someone comes to Jesus and everything that they used to look at to say, am I okay, is gone, and really maybe the only thing left to look at is Jesus and say, hey, are we still okay? That what this is telling us is those people, they knew more was coming. They knew that the reward is far greater than the suffering. And I think this is saying, like, hey, look, without faith, it's impossible to please him. Whoever would draw near to God must believe that he exists, that he rewards those who seek him. Meaning, like, hey, I've come to him and life's gotten really hard, and this is not the end of the story. There are rewards that he's promised me in following him that I would be a fool to turn back. He's leading me to better things, even though the path is harder than I thought. So now with that, we're now being led into the stories. So we're walking down the hall of faith, is what Hebrews chapter 11 is known as. It's like God's hall of fame of people who have walked with him and their stories, because now we're the people that he's saying, follow me. These people we read about are gone. They're alive with him. He says, I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Means that they are alive with him. He is presently their God, and he's the God of us. And so our observation of their lives will hopefully lead us in our lives. So we'll start with verse 8. By faith, Abraham obeyed when he was called to go out to a place that he was received as an inheritance. And he went out, not knowing where he was going. By faith, he went to live in the land of promise, as in a foreign land, living in tents with Isaac and Jacob, heirs with him of the same promise. Verse 10, for he was looking forward to the city that has foundations, whose designer and builder is God. It's like God says to Abraham, Abraham, I'm going to give you this great inheritance. And I want you to leave home to go get it. I want you to leave home to go receive it. I want you to head out. And I don't even know at this time if he even knew north, east, west, or south. I mean, imagine how stressful that would feel to you. Imagine like talking to your spouse and being like, hey, I think we're going to move. God told me we need to move. He's got this incredible inheritance for us. We're moving now. And it's like, okay, where? It's like, somewhere else. That's as much as I got right now, not here. And then the faith it would take to say, let's pack up. Let's start packing and let's see where he leads us. So they started packing, and God led his family to, look at this, the land of promise. By faith, he went to live in the land of promise. It does not say the land of fulfillment. I'm going to lead you to a place where there's a lot of promises there. It's like, can there be a lot of fulfillment there? Well, I'm calling it the land of promise. And when he got there, he didn't live in a palace. He didn't even own the land. God tells him, I'm going to give you an entire nation. Guess what real estate Abraham owned in his lifetime? 50,000 acres, 250,000 acres, 5 cities. The only real estate he ever purchased was the cave to bury his wife. That's his only real estate ownings for his entire life. They lived in tents. Did they feel gypped? We know they lived in the place of God's promises. They lived with the God who made the promises. And the place that they were looking forward to was always on the horizon. Now remember, the people who first got this were reading it, wondering, should I just walk away from Jesus? I don't know if I'm seeing what I'm supposed to be seeing. I really liked my house. It's just how I wanted it. I really liked my job. And it's like, can I tell you about Abraham? Learn. Listen. And what they were looking at on the horizon, the designer and the builder of that was God. And just a thing that I thought about, that we have it on the screen, that is just like, okay, I think this is true anywhere you live, wherever you live with Jesus, is that faith takes us to places of promise. And from there, we catch glimpses of the home God is building. So, and it does, I think faith takes us to these places of promise. And it's like, man, I'm not seeing this full fulfillment right now, but I am hearing his promises. And from here, I'm catching glimpses of like, I thought that, like, I love the home I grew up in. And it's like, I don't want to live here forever. And I occasionally catch glimpses of another home. And they did that, and we're to do that too. Then verse 11, by faith, Sarah herself received power to conceive, even when she was past the age. That doesn't mean like she's 37 or 45 or what. This means she is in her 90s and menopause happened decades ago. And the chance of having a baby is less than 0. So even when she was past the age, so Sarah herself received power to conceive even when she was past the age, since she considered him faithful who had promised. So she is a postmenopausal woman living in the land of promise. Verse 12, therefore from one man, and him as good as dead. Great way to have someone talk about you, huh? Oh, that guy? He's as good as dead, right? That's how old he is? Yeah, I mean, pretty much. He's pretty much just a dead man walking. You know, anytime now he's going to pass away. And him as good as dead, from those two people were born descendants, as many as the stars of heaven and as many as the innumerable grains of sand on the seashore or by the seashore. So Sarah saw God give a promise that her descendants would be uncountable. Like if you're like, how many grandkids do you have? How many great grandkids do you have? I can't even count them anymore. Like truly, I can't even count. Like that is where Sarah in her old age and Abraham in their old age are living in a land of promise, not fulfillment. You have a worn out man and a worn out woman. A worn out man and a worn out woman having faith in a God who is not worn out. Able to bring life where there's not life. So faith, faith lets us experience God bringing life to death, fulfilling his promises. Somehow it's like, God, if you're actually going to do what I read about, like, I think that's dead. I think the chance of that happening is less than zero, zilch. The only way this dead thing could have its heart beat again, or this dead thing could actually live, is if you brought life to death. And it's like, yeah, that's where we live. That's the land of promise. Verse 13, these all died in faith, not having received the things promised, but having seen them and greeted them from afar, and having acknowledged that they were strangers and exiles on the earth. For people who speak like this make it clear that they are seeking a homeland. I mean, I just think I spent time with some crazy, faithful people this last week that inspired me. People, I mean, like meeting George and meeting Josh and the kids at the well, meeting Josh and hearing his story and the choices he's making in his life. And I felt like I was around people like that, people who are having to like flee for their lives in the middle of the night to try to get to places to live for Jesus there. And what I like, God had miraculously brought Abraham to the promised land, and he had done so many things that we read about in the book of Genesis. And the land was still fully owned by others at the time of Abraham's death, right? It's like, Abraham, God gave you a nation. And he's like, well, I own a cave, and my dead wife is in there. When Sarah died, God had miraculously given her one son. God had miraculously done things in her body, allowing her to have a baby, and she could still count how many descendants she had. It's like, you won't even be able to count. And it's like, one. But they, though, were able to greet those things from afar. You know, I see people like, you know, if it's like, hey, you know, my story is ending here. But it's like, who are all, there's like a sea of people over there. And it's like, oh, hey, like he is fulfilling his promises. And faith sometimes is like, this is as far as I get to see. This is as far as I get to get in this. Faith has us living and dying in a land full of promises while still seeking our homeland. And it's like, God, would you let that be our DNA of our church, like our personal DNA? Would that be the DNA of our families? Verse 15, if they had been thinking of that land from which they had gone out, which is Ur of the Chaldeans, it's tons of archaeology has been done there. I geek out on that stuff. And where they came from, they found the royal cemetery where they came from, and there's a well-developed area. And if they had that first time, that's like, hey, pack your bags, you're going somewhere else. And they'd be like, we didn't hear from God, did we? No, we should totally stay here. It's so awesome here in Ur of the Chaldeans. But it said, if they had been thinking of that land from which they had gone out, they would have had opportunity to return. Life was better back there, wasn't it? Which is the exact thing that the Hebrews were doing. Like, we went all in with Jesus. Some people said, like, hey, just do Jesus in moderation. People who go all in with Jesus, their life changes, and just let's not get carried away here. You should do Jesus in moderation. So then you can go back. But it's saying, like, no, Abraham and Sarah followed God and didn't look back. The people who are receiving this message, follow God, don't look back. As it is, verse 16, they desire a better country, that is a heavenly one. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared for them a city. I love that Abraham and Sarah could have many times said, like, hey, who are we kidding here? I mean, look, God's told us this, we're in the land of promise, but like we can count to one and we have no land other than a cemetery plot. And it's like, hey, maybe we're kidding ourselves. Maybe we should just hang it up. Maybe we should stop praying. Maybe we should stop hoping for future things. Maybe we should stop advancing, stop pushing back darkness. What I love here, though, is like faith. Faith in Jesus. Looking to the object of our faith. Faith keeps us hungry for our better country, our heavenly country. I love this quote from C.S. Lewis. He lived during the time of World War II, and afterwards, he was really sharing Jesus with a culture that was starting to walk away from Jesus, and he wrote many beautiful things. And his book, Mere Christianity, is one of my all-time favorite books. I actually have a little place in my bookshelf that if my house is on fire, I'm going to grab these books. Not because I can't re-buy them, but because they're the books that have most moved me, and I've written all throughout them throughout the years. And so I've got some Bibles I want to grab, and then Mere Christianity is in my section of my house is on fire, I need to grab this. After Grace is safely out of the home and all that stuff. It's not my first priority, but it is a priority. It might be in front of one of our dogs' priority. That was mean to say, but hey, hopefully it would get out safely too. But I would care about this book. So in Mere Christianity, it says this: if you read history, you will find that the Christians who did most for the present world were just those who thought most of the next. The apostles themselves who set on foot the conversion of the Roman Empire, the great men who built up the Middle Ages, the English evangelicals, including Hannah More and others of the Clapham sect, the English evangelicals who abolished the slave trade, they all left their mark on earth precisely because their minds were occupied with heaven. It is since Christians have largely ceased to think of the other world that they have become so ineffective in this. Aim at heaven and you will get earth thrown in. Aim at earth and you get neither. There's a lot to unpack in that. I think, though, it speaks to what we're learning here and how we're being invited to live here. Verse 17, by faith, Abraham, when he was tested, offered up Isaac. And he who had received the promises was in the act of offering up his only son, of whom it was said, through Isaac shall your offspring be named. So even this, like, if you're not familiar with the story, in the land of promise, promises were made to both Abraham and to Sarah. And it was like, through this son, all of these promises are going to come. Jesus is going to come through this lineage. And all that Jesus is will come through Isaac. And then probably when he was like a teenager, God told Abraham, go and sacrifice your son. Which is not, there's many things I could say about that, because that was as shocking to Abraham as it is to us to even conceive of such a thing, even though it actually foreshadows the Father giving his Son as a sacrifice to us. And right when Abraham was actually going to do it, God rescued him and said, no, 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 I will provide a sacrifice. And I think all of that happened to teach us what the Father did for us, provided a sacrifice for us in his Son. And it was as painful as we could imagine, even emotionally inside of the Trinity. But here we're being told, by faith, Abraham, when he was tested, offered up Isaac, and he who had received the promises was in the act of offering up his only son, of whom it was said, through Isaac shall your offspring be named. And then we actually get a picture into what was going on in Abraham's head in that moment. Verse 19, he considered that God was able even to raise him from the dead, from which, figuratively speaking, he did receive him back. So even Abraham was saying, I know this God could even raise him from the dead because the promises he's given me are trustworthy. So there's got to be a way for him to actually see his promises come about. So even in the most trying times, the greatest tests we will, like each of us, the greatest tests that we will experience, the most unknown moment of how in the world are we going to get through this? How in the world is this going to work? The object of our faith, the powerful one that our faith is in, he actually says, he says this at the beginning of one of the Gospels, I am the resurrection and the life. Like the resurrection isn't just this verb that that happens around Easter time. Like Jesus is always the resurrection and the life. And he happened to the cross. Like he is the one that killed death, and the resurrection and the life could not stay dead. And so a reality, even in the time of Abraham, thousands of years before this, is that faith keeps us considering the God of resurrection, and all that can be taken from us can be given back. Like if we just live as people, just being like, well, he can turn anything around. I mean, imagine the light that we would be to our community, like families that are wrestling so much with kids that seem so far into meth for so many years that there's no hope. And it's like, well, we follow a God who brings things back from even death. Like we believe in a God who can turn anything around. The story is never over with him. Like there's always hope for a marriage. There's always hope for a relationship. There's always hope with our kids. There's always hope with our parents. There's always a way because he is the way maker. Verse 20, we'll end with this verse. By faith, Isaac invoked future blessings on Jacob and Esau. By faith, Jacob, when dying, blessed each of the sons of Joseph, bowing in worship over the head of his staff. By faith, Joseph, at the end of his life, made mention of the exodus of the Israelites and gave directions concerning his bones. And if you don't understand this, it's that they had been slaves in Egypt and at the time of Joseph's death, what nobody knew was that the people would be slaves for 400 years. And Joseph is saying, hey, when God leads you out of here, take my bones with you. Take them to the land of promise and put them in the cave of Machpelah, which is where Sarah is buried as well. And we think all their bones are still in there, which is pretty incredible. So one thing we did as a church last year that was really fun to do that we didn't do this year was we didn't do the roller skating rink thing. We did that like a year ago or whatever. Some of us went that, and it was super fun. Deb and I went toe to toe on getting under the bar. She beat me as you could observe and expect would have happened. But one of the things when you're roller skating, I love this when you're roller skating is like when you're getting ready to turn around the corner or go around the circle and you like whip the person around. Maybe there are other places that you do this, but like you get in a line and like you actually have to stop, right? And then you just use all your momentum and it like the person on the outside is just like, wow, like just going crazy, right? Like in my weird mind, this is what I think is happening in these verses is that Isaac is flinging Jacob and Esau into the future. And then at the end of his life, Joseph is flinging a whole people into the future. His faith, and God is using his faith that will actually fuel the faith of other people who are trusting God as well and trusting his promises, a giant push. And this is kind of the last kind of point of faith allows us to actively participate in a work that far outlives us. It allows us to be super excited. I was thinking even a couple days ago, like someone brought up an idea to me and it led me think 50 years from now. And it's like, I'm probably not going to be a part of this, but here we go. So I have a picture for us to like meditate on. So Rebecca, can you hit the picture of just the little seedling? Okay. So look at the picture, take it in. Let's assume this is going to survive. Let's not, if you really know, like if you're an arborist, hopefully this is something that could be planted and be really healthy and take off. This is a true sapling of a giant sequoia. And I kind of love just like picturing that, like that is a giant sequoia tree. And I think if I were to summarize like Hebrews 11, 8 through 22 in a picture, it would be this. It's like, yes, you could throw that away. Yes, you could like just be like, well, dang, it was a lot of work to get it to here. And different things like that. But to say like, would you be okay walking with God knowing that he has a home prepared for you? He's doing incredible things in your life and he's just getting started. And where he's leading you is truly home. And your contribution on planet Earth could be this. This is as far as you get. You're like, no, I don't. I want people to drive and observe in my life this majestic thing. And it's like, yeah, that's Jesus. And what if he uses your life to get the story this far? And then the next photo being, this leads to this. And that person is a person in 400 years that gets to walk among things that we're planting right now and seedlings that we're tending to. And kind of the question is like, would you plant a sequoia if you knew you wouldn't be able to benefit from it? But you knew that people would benefit. Like, would you live a life now knowing like, hey, I'm not going to get 100% of the fulfillment I'm looking for, but there's no turning back if this is just a very slight picture, a very worldly picture of what he's building and what he's doing. And like, we have people who are the first people to ever come to Jesus with their last names. And they're starting to like form a spiritual heritage from scratch. And maybe in their family story, they plant a sequoia. And then their kids, grandkids, great-grandkids get to start feeling this with their family name, with your family name, with your influence in this world. And you're like, yeah, but with the singlet, they also don't know the fires it survived, all this stuff that brought it to that moment. And so I think just my prayer has been, Lord, would you lead us in what does that type of faith mean for me today? What does that type of faith, and not what does it look like to have you as the focus of my life in that way? And he calls us, he says he is the author of our faith. And then maybe where we're at today is like, are you a willing participant? You know, if someone came up to me and was like, hey, I'm going to give you $1 million, I'd be like, I am a willing participant in that exchange. You will find me willing. If it's like, hey, I'm going to do this in your life, can we say, I'm willing? Yeah, but you're going to be tempted to turn back, but you're still going to be there to catch it? Yes, I'm willing. It's going to be way harder than if you never knew I existed. And exponentially better because of the bigger forever story he's writing and allowing us to even shine the light in our community for others to come to him as well. He's the author of our faith. Would we be willing participants? So, Lord, I just pray, would you teach us this morning? Would you meet with us? Lord, I want this type of faith. I want it. Like, I don't want it. I want just the easy life, but I want it. I want to greet these things from afar. I want you. I want to trust fall in you every day. I want to walk in you, not in my own. Like, I want people to tell stories about me and other people and maybe not even remember what our names were, but just say, hey, there were these crazy people living in central Iowa at this time, and all these sequoias were planted, and look at the shade. Look at what's happening. And maybe here it's oak trees. Look at all of these Iowa majestic oak trees that have been planted here that now many people know about Jesus because of these crazy people who said, we're just going to go all in and be changed by you. And yeah, you could pick some better people, but you said, follow me. And so I'm following you. I don't deserve it, but I'm willing. I'm a willing participant. Lord, would that be us this morning? For your glory, Jesus, we pray. Amen.